My name is Farah Jiménez. I'm the president and CEO of the Philadelphia Education Fund. So I was raised in Central Jersey. My parents were immigrants from Cuba. I remember as a child not knowing how to speak English at all and having very vivid memories of not understanding what was happening in the world around me. But my parents decided to raise us in a fully Anglo community, so we were obviously forced to learn English, and it became where we lived was not very diverse at all. And I remember being in the malls and being able to speak Spanish and knowing that no one would understand us. That's no longer the case. There's so many Latinos all over the country, but when I was growing up, it was pretty rare to be Spanish speaking. My mom, however, coming from Cuba, was able to finish her medical degree, and this was in the 1970s when it was very unusual for women to be doctors. So when I was older, I wanted to follow in her footsteps. I wanted to become a doctor. I studied really hard, got into the University of Pennsylvania here in Philadelphia, and that's how I ended up here in Philly.
Siblings?
I have a sister who's a year older.
Oh, nice. Mm-hmm. So then, coming to Philly for school, I assume, at first, and then you just kind of stuck around?
No, I didn't stick around. So while I enjoyed being a student in Philadelphia, my life's goal was to live in Washington, D.C. So that was where I really wanted to live. Even as a kid, I was very interested in politics and how government worked, maybe because my parents are immigrants, and for them coming to the United States felt like a gift to be able to leave a country where the only thing they could take with them was my sister and my mother's belly, because my mom was pregnant at the time, and the clothes on their back and their education. And so I was taught to really love the United States of America, and so my goal was to work in Washington, D.C. in some government position, in a legislative role in some way, supporting government. But ultimately, when I graduated from undergrad, I ended up living in D.C.
Okay.
I decided I wanted to come back to Philly because I got accepted to the University of Pennsylvania for law school, and I wanted to get my law degree so I could go back and work in Congress. But I ended up not doing that. I ended up in law school really falling in love with the city of Philadelphia, and then also falling in love with a man, which is ultimately why I ended up staying in Philadelphia. So I always say that I was a student who majored in extracurriculars and minored in academics. I was not the most committed student. I did well enough, obviously, to get into law school at Penn, because that's not the easiest thing to do. But I was very active. I was active in working with homelessness issues. I ran a free meals program on campus where we provided meals 7 days a week to individuals who were street homeless and provided them with groceries and clothing. I got very involved in those causes, was very involved in student government, served on many city committees, but I was also a dancer and did join the ballet troupe and the dance troupes and the musical theater groups. So as you can see, I wrote for the paper, I was a dance critic, I was involved in a ton of things as an undergraduate. But my academic journey was history and then urban studies, which is partly what introduced me to the diversity and the richness of Philadelphia, because as part of an urban studies minor, you're traveling the city and doing research, and I ended up really liking Philly then. So I think it's important to share why I ended up at the Philadelphia Education Fund. I've led a variety of nonprofits here in Philly. My first one was a community development corporation, revitalizing a commercial corridor in Mount Airy, doing some affordable housing development. That led me to working at a nonprofit called People's Emergency Center, which has since changed its name to Hope PHL, working with family homelessness. And in all of those journeys, the thing there was a commonality was the fact that for many who were finding themselves in poverty, it was a result of limited education, lapsed education, interrupted education. And so I've always been, given my parents' journey here, knowing that education was the thing that let them succeed in the United States, I was very interested in finding a way to pivot, and I got invited to serve on the school board, which was at the time called the School Reform Commission in Philadelphia, the governing body of our school district. During my tenure, I got asked if I would consider joining this organization, Philadelphia Education Fund, as its CEO, and I leapt at the chance because it was an opportunity to really invest in the thing that I know made the huge difference for my family. So that leads to the mission of the Philadelphia Education Fund. It is about helping students access opportunity for post-secondary success. And the place where we work is where 38% of Philadelphia students go, which are our comprehensive neighborhood schools. Most students, because of the competitive process we have for school selection, we have a significant amount of students who are in charter schools, who choose a private path, or choose special selection schools. But there are 38% who default into these schools, and they tend to be pretty under-resourced. Their graduation rates are significantly lower than the average. And in those schools are kids with ambition and talent and potential, and we really believe that if we can help them really harness that and believe in themselves, that they can also go to college, or they can pursue like a really robust degree or career, that the world becomes their oyster. So it's a really exciting mission to be a part of, and to see the stories of our young people as they graduate and end up going to med school or end up working in some of our finest companies here in Philadelphia.
Any specific story that stands out?
So one is a young woman who is now in med school. She had a heart for medicine because her father had been ill, but the reason she didn't think she could go to college is that she was from an immigrant family, and in her country, girls don't get educated. And so she tells a story about how she knew that girls didn't get educated, and she stumbled upon our program in our high school, and she, for the first time, realized, oh, I could get an education. I could become a doctor. I could be the kind of person who could heal my father. And so she was able to, with our assistance, apply, succeed in getting into Cabrini. She ended up getting our scholarship, which we provide to our students as well. We award just shy of $1 million a year in scholarships to our students, and completed her degree. Championed her brother so that he would also end up going to college, so he followed her lead. And then finally applied and was accepted to college. So that's one of those journeys where you know that you were there to just open up a door of possibility for a young person. What's interesting, one of the outgrowths of COVID for us was creating a program when we were coming out of it, which at the time we called a learning loss program. So there was a reality that many students were not actually showing up in the classroom, in the virtual classroom. We were finding, because our work is embedded in Philly schools, when it was virtual, we were embedded virtually as well in those classrooms. We were seeing attendance rates drop from 85% to 43%. So that meant students may have arrived at the beginning of the day, but then as classes persisted during the course of the day, they tuned out. We also saw a lot of young people who were working jobs while going to school virtually, and so they weren't really fully invested or able to give full attention to their studies. And so we created this program, which we now call Scholars Advantage, and the idea behind it is to provide a low-stakes way for young people to get academic enrichment, but in a way that's really fun and hands-on. And so our students participate for 4 weeks during the summer, where they can take a computer science track, a skilled trades track, a English composition, anatomy physiology track, and they do hands-on labs. They have career speakers that come in, and it's a really exciting way to have taken the moment where a lot of young people were impacted in terms of their learning, and turn learning into something fun and really enriching for young people, so that they realize that this is for them, their education. It's not something that they're doing for other people, that they should harness it and take command of it. Yeah, so a couple thoughts. One is that we receive a significant amount of funding through the U.S. Department of Education, and that the new administration came in saying they wanted to close the Department of Education. My sense of it is that they will transition some of the work that they currently invest into the Department of Labor, and they'll in essence close the Department of Education because it'll be skinnied out by moving some of its functions to other agencies. The program that funds us has tremendous bipartisan support. Republican Senator Susan Collins from Maine, at hearings where there was an attempt by the administration to get rid of the entire investment, said, "This is a hill I'm going to die on," and she was joined by many others. So ultimately, it's called the U.S. It's the TRIO talent search program, and it was called TRIO because when it was created, it was only 3 federal programs. But all of it's around the idea of how do you help more people access college as a pathway. And so all those investments that are happening for 800,000 young people across the country and all of the territories was at threat for a moment, but it looks like we're on sound footing. So that's a real opportunity, because when you're calling attention to something people are taking for granted, it's a reminder that those kinds of investments and the investments in those young people are really important. The other threat, which is more of a general threat, is a lot of the focus in the existing narrative is that not every child needs to go to college. And that is a fair statement, absolutely. Not every child needs to go to college. But often when people are saying that, they're working really hard to have their own child go to college, and they're talking about some other children. And those children tend to be the ones we're working with. The idea that they don't really need to go to college, it's a lot of loan debt, why burden yourself, just go get a job. And a job isn't a career. A job doesn't always lead to upward economic mobility. And so how do we get young people the opportunity, if they're interested, to go to college, to do that successfully? Because it doesn't change the fact that while we do have more people who might be interested going right into career or trades, a college education is the surest way to long-term financial economic sustainability, and the data continues to show that. Data also shows that 72% of jobs in our region are going to require some form of post-secondary education. So we want that to always be college forward for young people. If they choose something else, for that choice to be made with intention and with the supports that they need to be successful, so that it's a career for them. So on the local, I think it's really the framing around this education story. So much of the funding across the city and even in foundations have moved away from supporting college access and success. And even K-12 education, it's moved highly into workforce development with a focus on adults. So adults being maybe young people who are younger adults, 18 to 24, or those who have a need to be reskilled because job market has changed. I think that's a bit of a threat, because it ignores the fact that we still have a pipeline of young people who can either become the adults who populate the jobs that exist in Philadelphia, or they're going to become the future clients for all those programs about upskilling and reskilling. So I think an opportunity for Philadelphia is to make sure it continues to invest in K-12 education in a robust way, and helps young people, particularly the ones we're working with who are in these comprehensive high schools, access the fullest potential that they have. Well, I think nonprofits have to operate differently. It's an incredibly competitive landscape. In fact, when I joined the Philadelphia Education Fund, the first thing I asked our team to do was to provide for me a landscape analysis so that I could understand, where does the Philadelphia Education Fund fit compared to all the other nonprofits doing work with young people, helping them access college. So they returned to me the name of 65 nonprofits who were doing some form of college access. That's just in Philly, 65. And so I went to the school district and I met with the chief academic officer, and I said, that's a lot of nonprofits. You would think that we would have greater high school graduation and college completion rates given the volume. And she shared that their Office of School Partnerships on their list had 300 nonprofits that were doing some form of college access and success. That's a lot. So the biggest opportunity we have is to do more work collaboratively. And in fact, we took that moment in time and that data to form such a collaborative. So in Philadelphia, we now have the college access and success ecosystem, and it exists to bring all those nonprofits, the private sector, government, the school district together, universities and colleges, so that we can really leverage one another to have more impact for young people. So, that's one of the, I think, opportunities in Philadelphia with the competition. But for nonprofits, because of the competition, we have to be much more innovative. At the Philadelphia Education Fund, for example, we have an online platform called Philly Goes to College. We sell ads on the space. We've monetized the site. And so that's one way that we're able to help sustain and grow that site. In terms of the organization itself, we have a consulting practice. So we take on clients. They can be school districts. We have corporations that hire us. We have individuals who hire us to build out their scholarship programs. So nonprofits have to figure out how to get creative, because it's not all going to come from charity or philanthropy anymore. We have to operate much like businesses do. Oh, beyond 2026? You mean not just on the 250th? So, our vision is we'd love to be able to expand into more schools. And so the competitive application process for the federal funding that we get is about to begin. So last time around, 5 years ago, we were successful in adding a school and getting more funding. And our hope is that we'll be able to continue to add schools. Because there are a lot of schools in Philly that could benefit from having full-time college advising provided by a nonprofit like ours in their classrooms. And I think the other is to create more connection for young people and awareness of the careers. Philly is a robust community of medical and life sciences and healthcare, a lot of STEM jobs that are here, and a lot of businesses that are looking for talent. So however we can connect more young people to get them really excited about the sciences as a possible career pathway is a place where we're doing a lot of investing. In fact, we have a 10-year partnership with GSK for an initiative called the Philadelphia STEM Equity Collective, and the intention behind that is to increase the number of young people, particularly Latinos and African American students, as well as young women, because they're underrepresented in STEM as a career and academic pathway. And that's what Philly's all about. That's what our main industry sector is. So getting more young people into STEM would be very exciting. Yeah, so we serve a very diverse population, and it's largely informed by the fact that we're serving at particular schools. And so these are schools where you'll see largely minority students and minority populations present. And so the goal for us is for them to be aware that college is a possibility for them, because oftentimes they're coming out of home environments where they don't have anyone in their immediate circle that themselves may have gone to college, or that are working rich STEM jobs, and so they don't have someone they can bounce ideas off of. And you think a lot about my family, being an immigrant family. My parents were both professionals, but they didn't know the American system. So how did I learn about the process of going to college in the United States? Through my friends. We were lucky that we were in a really great public school district where nearly everybody in my school was going to be going to college, and so I was asking them all kinds of questions. Where do you go? How do you know what school to go to? How do you apply? That's not true for many of the kids that we're working with, and so being that support for that young person, giving them the courage to go ahead and do that, and educating sometimes their parents about the process, because they, if they know more, they can be more confident about sending their kids off to a good college and to a good school. But Philly is incredibly diverse, and it's diverse. I think we have some schools where we have 30 plus languages being spoken at home. So it's incredibly diverse. So whatever we can be doing to helping these young people, navigate a better future is great. So we work in 6 Philadelphia public schools in high school. We work in 7 middle schools, Philadelphia public schools, and we target Philadelphia public schools for the reasons I stated earlier, just because those are the places that become places of default for young people. So one of our strong partners obviously is the School District of Philadelphia. We do a lot of programming with them and for the students who are attending those schools. We have a lot of corporate partners, GSK being our most significant, with the partnership we have with them around STEM education, partner with a lot of universities. So together with our 2, I mentioned our college access and success ecosystem, and then we also have the Philadelphia STEM Equity Collective, similar, bringing together people to work on STEM issues. Through the different collective action tables that we run, we have about 1,000 partners. So we have a lot of different organizations and individuals and all kinds of walks of life, doing all kinds of in private industry, in the city government and state government, who are very committed to trying to help our young people. Well, I think in all my jobs, I'm just hoping that I have an opportunity to have had an impact in someone's life. Many people I'm not going to know about. Occasionally we'll get an email from someone. We serve organization 1,800 young people every year, so I'm not going to know them all, and we've done those same numbers over the years. So it's really such a richness, and it always fills my heart when I get an email from someone who says, I'm sending over a donation because this organization changed my life. And so it's always, those are the moments, I guess that's where I get my joy, is those stories, or the young woman I mentioned earlier who writes me and says, I finally got into med school. That's where it comes. It's one-on-one. It's the individual stories, knowing that you've had an impact. So it's interesting. So we're building that. So we haven't really ever formally had an alumni network. And I think in part because we've always been focused on who do we have to serve next? They've graduated and we're done. But we're trying to bring these young people back home, so to speak, because this is our 40th year. So we're celebrating 40 years of doing this work in Philadelphia. And so this feels like the moment in time to ask people to come back and be part of the organization supporting the next generation forward. That being said, we do have alums who are on our board and who do engage with us as speakers and presenters on a regular basis. Well, we love partnering. That is like our A1. I mentioned the 2 collective impact tables we formed because we believe that the more the merrier, the better that the more we work together, the more impact we can have for young people. So they can obviously visit us on our website, which is www.philaedfund.org. Or they can visit if they know young people or they themselves are interested in going to college, whether they're a young person in middle grades or they're an adult who's looking to go back to college. We have an incredible website called phillygoestoccollege.org and phillygoes2college.org. They should absolutely visit that site, share it, and it has incredible information. In fact, there's a drop down that says I am, and you can put in there I am a middle grader, I am an adult learner, I am undocumented, and resources about every kind of help you can get if you're interested in going to college is available on that site. So those would be the 2 things I would invite people to do, visit those 2.
And how can people support the work that you do?
So they can volunteer to become career speakers or panelists. They can reach out if they think they might have an interest in serving on our board or serving on a fundraising committee for us. They can join one of our collective tables, a College Access and Success Ecosystem or the STEM Equity Collective, and they can find out more on our website. And obviously, as always, they can donate. We always appreciate any gifts of any size. Everything helps us be able to support young people.